I want to first figure out, or I want to talk about and kind of dive into what got you into film. Like, was it a movie that you saw that just captivated you as a kid? Were you always into it? Like, you have a very impressive space where you are now, but where was that start and that spark?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was not. I was not. Um, it wasn't like a youthful dream. I wasn't a film fanatic at a young age. What I was a painfully shy kid. Kind of like if I could have had a superpower back then, I would have made myself invisible so I wouldn't be seen or noticed. I just felt so uncertain and, um, as I said, very shy. I wouldn't raise my hand in school, and I sort of lived in a bit of a bubble. I didn't really see where I fit, but I where I did fit was in books, starting at a very young age, and I just fell in love with stories and storytelling. Um, and that's really the silver thread that's connected pretty much every choice that I've ever made, because I see life as storytelling. And the first version of that, ironically, was being a hippie coming out of UC Berkeley. That there, I had an, and still do, happily have an over romanticized notion of life. And one interesting, sort of odd judgment that I made was that I really wanted to be a champion of the underdog. I wanted to do something good in the world. And back then, before we knew the word entrepreneurship, before, it was a very different era. And I looked around and I thought, number one, I'm such a black belt in daydreaming. I'll never become a functioning adult. I need to learn an adult language. So I went to law school. And the reason I chose law school was in part to become an adult or see myself as such. And part of it was because I had discovered in the ghetto of San Francisco, this wonderful part of town called Bayview Hunters Point, a foundation that served its community, and including the criminal defense unit, the sexy linchpin, which defended the indigent adults of that geography in lieu of the public defender. And I thought, I want to work with them. They're like this holistic solution every need of a community, and I want to go work there. So I worked there for free for a year, and it was life altering. And I thought, I'm getting into law school. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to become a criminal defense lawyer, and I'm going to work here because I saw the theater as, or I saw the courtroom as theater, a great place to really hone your storytelling skills. Anyway, long story short, it was a brilliant chapter of my life and not well suited to a long-term lifestyle. It was very harsh. And that's the point at which I had to think, what else would I want to do? And the only other thing I really wanted to do was to tell stories on a big screen. That seemed a much better calling.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran away from San Francisco, and whatever fit in my Volkswagen came with to LA. And I drove down the coast and didn't know a soul, and just figured, all the men on either side of my family were entrepreneurs. And I mean, none of them were Warren Buffett, not by a long shot, but they did fine. They took care of their families. And it just was my understanding, sort of unspoken understanding, that you go forth and you just do the thing that speaks to you, and it'll somehow work out if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
So I made it to LA, and I figured somehow, some way, I'm going to learn and find my way into the film business.
Somehow, some way, I'm going to learn to find my way. I think that, well, maybe they don't feel it as deeply as you. I don't live in LA, but my really close friend does. And I think maybe a lot of people go into LA with that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to do what it takes to make it no matter what, whatever, but not everybody does. So what do you think that you did differently? Or could you pinpoint something that like is not luck, or maybe it is luck, that allowed you to be the one to go and, because I feel like I saw a meme that was like, LA is actors serving other actors. Like it's just like people all in that space, right? Which is beautiful that you can go somewhere and have these, this massive exposure, or this place where it's so condensed there. But like,
Right.
what did Gary do different?
I think I've had a lot of blessings. I think I think we make our luck. I really do believe that we create our reality. Um, and maybe there's some angels sitting on our shoulder as well. But I think a lot of it for me was a willingness to be honest and vulnerable and tell the universe and everyone that I met who I was and what I wanted. And also that I'm the turnip that just fell off the truck. I am dumb as a doornail. But gosh, and I discovered there was not coming from San Francisco, which they say is, the coldest winter they ever spent was the summer in San Francisco, foggy and cold. I
Hmm.
came to LA and it was sunny and warm, and there was an outdoor health club with all these tennis courts and paddle tennis courts and swimming pool, all the things that I love. And I thought, I'm going to go hang here because I don't know anyone. And it also occurred to me that who's spending their time at an outdoor health club during the day, during the week? These must be freelance creatives. They must be my tribe waiting to meet me. So I went, and it was true, not entirely, but it was largely true. So I would play a couple of hours of tennis in the morning, a couple of hours of paddle tennis in the afternoon, swim in the middle. And wherever I was, whoever I was interacting with, I would ask them, at the end of a tennis game or whatever, who are you? Tell me about yourself. What do you do? And if they were in any way related, I would say, would you be willing to be my 5 minute mentor, my 3.7 minute mentor? And I have a couple of questions that would mean the world to me. And everybody was kind and everybody was relaxed and said yes. And I would say, look, I don't even know the job titles. I'm so unknowledgeable. But I'm trying to figure this out. And it would, I really appreciate your generosity. And over the course of that first year, I made like several hundred friends. Um, and along the way, one of them said, you know how to represent people. You don't want to be an attorney, but you know how to represent people. And you seem to love writers most, or writer directors, filmmakers. You like the writers. You're a writer yourself. I said, yes. He said, well, there's this thing called management. You should be a literary manager. Just form your own company. You can do it out of a shoebox. And that's what I did. Um, but I think, in answer to your question, London, it was just a willingness to be naked with people and tell the actual truth, the deepest truth I could share, without a lot of frills. And people responded really beautifully to it, were incredible to me. And some of those people are still dear friends to this day.
Yeah, because you decided to put yourself in a
Mm.
space for growth and ask those questions and be curious. But how did you, was there something specific that you worked on? Was it the part of going to law school and like that process? How did you go from like wanting to be invisible to like 100 new friends?
It took a long time. I mean, I think even as a law, it was funny that I chose to be a courtroom lawyer because I was so shy, but that helped me get over it.
Yeah.
Um, I think realizing how would I say this? How deeply unexpected, valuable, and important were these relationships, especially when I became an attorney and I was in this community. It was like, this is not about me. There's so much more meat on this bone. And I'm here to contribute and be somehow add value to the circumstance. And I've got to stop being obsessed with me. It's a waste
Mhm.
of my time. Um, and so over time, you just start practicing. It's like any muscle. I mean, you see this in terms of all the work you do in physical training. It's like a muscle. It's you start to lose your obsession with your own insecurities or your own self doubts or your lack of self belief or your undeservedness or whatever all those stories are. Because I don't know if you know Robin Sharma, but it's like, he has this wonderful line that the mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. And it's so true because
Mm.
all of these lesser stories, all of this time that all of us waste until those of us who are fortunate get to the point where we actually mature And we say to ourselves, we're here. It's not an accident. I mean, the odds of us being here are impossible. They don't exist. It's zero.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the math and the science of it. But the fact that we are here, it must therefore be a miracle. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone is important, and you can't know their journey, but you have to respect. Years ago, I was asked to go. I was invited. I actually sort of invited myself. Okay, so there's this thing called the International Council of of Grandma. The the International Council of the 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, right? And they're all shamans from tribes all over the world, and they meet every 6 to 12 months in one of their respective homelands, bringing all the younger women, their nieces and granddaughters and whatever, to pass on the oral storytelling and physical ritual traditions of their tribes so they aren't lost.
Mm.
So a friend of mine and I went to be the story guides and sit in on their public and private councils and just give feedback. So one day the grandmothers leave the rooftop. We're in Kathmandu on a rooftop looking at the Himalayas with all these flags and the white top peak mountains. And you think you're in heaven. And the Nepalese people are the most, you're in the presence of something sacred and kind. So the grandmothers are getting up and they say, we're going to go have a private council. Please come. And we said, you know what, grandmothers, not today. We'll see you later. So I was with a friend, Michael, and we were on this rooftop, and we continued to stay there alone on this rooftop having this conversation. We were actually planning to play hooky and go to an ancient village not far away. But we got wrapped up in this conversation. And the conversation was about fear and this tool of fear called judgment, which is so second nature to human beings. And I said, Michael, you have to see it for what it is. And he said, what is it? And I said, judgment serves us. It's a horrible thing to do to oneself as much as to others, but it serves us because human beings have this profound need to feel safe. And judgment allows for that. It pushes things away. It narrows the field of play. It circumscribes what we call our comfort zone. I said, sometime try walking, but here's the trick. Walk down a street. You can do it in Kathmandu, you can do it in LA. Walk down a street anywhere where there's a lot of people. And soften your gaze. Blur, so your vision blurs just a little bit. And you can't quite make out, you see the outlines of people, but you're not seeing their features. And you're not really noticing how they're dressed. And just walk down the street a block that way and let these people walk past in that sort of gauzy visual.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're doing that, consciously tell yourself, these are not people, these are souls. I'm passing by souls on the street, which makes me, by use of that word, I know I'm humbled. I can't possibly imagine their origin story, their experience, their challenges, their lessons, their journey. It's just, it's beyond me. But I know they're here for good purpose, however that feels in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it just forever shifted. So I think these are things like, I don't know where this comes from. I'm not like anyone in my family. My first girlfriend, the great love of my life for 6 years in and out of college, introduced me to, it's funny, her whole family hails from West Texas, and they were true cowboys and outlaws. But she is the one who introduced me to Buddhism. And it's kind of been like ever since, I don't know where these threads all come from, but they weave into my worldview, which is why I had that phrase, spiritual nomad. I know when something resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that there's a point at which in your life you kind of get over yourself,
Mhm.
and you're it's tiring. It's exhausting being human,
Yes.
right?
I think that's the maturity part that you mentioned is like you just get over yourself. It's like over all of these stories or things you might have been carrying that haven't been serving you. Or, yeah, I just feel like that's real maturity. And I feel like there's been moments even in my recent life where I feel like I have grown and I look at those parts of me that I have released and it's like, gosh, that was so heavy and exhausting to carry and like, ugh, like love ya, but no, no mas. I
Yeah.
don't like to, like that's not part of my story anymore. And yeah, I just like that really spoke to me with what you said.